The whole idea with media query and container queries, well, we need to start somewhere, and we could start easily going back all the way up here. We're talking about media devices and Orion, and we had a lot of devices that require different kind of you know design. Design has to change because you don't fit as many things into a device because of basically resolution and if we were more correct about it, it's more like how many pixels they can be, in the part of the screen. So that PPI. So PPI in combination with resolution and size that really dictates how many things that fits on the screen and how well you can see them. So there's that, and of course you will already notice that if I go into a website these days using a mobile phone, I see one design, and that design has, in some ways, shifted. The layout of that design has shifted around when you look at it through a desktop computer or a laptop or a tablet. So you can see there are like some connection to the media. Here you go. The media device is somehow um, um, related to this media thing up here in the media queries. Okay, we'll get to that very soon. And this is, of course, very much an example. So there's going to be in the future real reasons for you to expand on this and try this more and more and learn more about this, how to work with media queries properly. Container queries is a rather new thing. It has been asked for many years, but it was, I would say that the first time I really had a requirement for people to use it was during 2023 to 2024, during that period, because up until that point, it had not become used wide over as much. So right now, this is a very, very new and very useful thing called container queries, and we're going to look into that as well. Now, next step is, like I said in the last video, go into VS Code. So I'll do that. I'll go open this up in VS Code. I already have that. And you can see that on the right here, we have something that you are used to already. The thing you see to the right is the code where we left it last time when we were looking at Flexbox and CSS grid systems. And now we're going to revisit this example and add some things. And if excuse me if my share is sounding a lot. I think I need to put some 556 on it, which is a kind of oil that I'll have at home and everyone should have at home because it fixes basically everything. You could almost make a sandwich with it. No, you shouldn't. Never make a sandwich with that. But, it fixes a lot of squeaking doors and stuff like that. So anyway, we get back to business. We can see we have item. So let's go ahead. What I want to do next is actually to within the item that we have on CSS Grid, because I'm not going to do this in Flexbox. I'm going to show this example entirely using CSS Grid. You can do this on Flexbox, it's not limited to it, but I get to, when I'm finished with this example, CSS Grid, you could start to think about how the Flexbox structure makes it difficult for us to do the same thing as easily. So we'll get to that soon. The first thing I think we'll do is basically do something really simple. We currently we have the 5th child and we have this 6th child, and we could do this. We want to shift this around and give them the opposite color. So the 8 get this red color, and the 3 get this turquoise color. And if I go like this, you see the screen size changes, and I wanted to feel that whenever it's above a certain size, it's going to change color. Okay. So if it is larger or equal to a certain size, it's going to change color. So and it's going to look at the size of the window, the whole, not the desktop, but the browser window. So that's what media query does. We'll do that. It can actually also do more things. It could handle design when you want to print the web page, and print it to a printer, of course. You might need a different design, of course. So then you can do something called at media query for print, but that's not part of this course. So how should we do this? Well, you can see that item starts here and it ends in here. And I can do this for both in two different ways. Either I could do, when I'm working with nesting styles like this, I can do these things again. Or I can do a media query inside of each of them. So we can start by doing, like, taking this and I'm going to copy it. Right now I'm going to remove this because that's not needed anymore. I'm not going to change that here. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it down there, and then just take this one and put it up here, and then now I've flexed them around. And but right now, if I do this save, it's like that forever. It's like that all the time. Now I need to make, because this is written afterwards, it's going to win over those above, source order. This is later in the source order, so they win over these properties because these are written before. The same specificity, but source order still matters. So we can go ahead and look at the media query. It's simple. Usually when you're working with media, always when you're working with these kind of queries, you in CSS you start with an @ symbol. Now it's always suggesting right now media screen, and that's what I want. I wanted to only do this for screens, not the print. Print I would probably go with black and white or something like that. And I also wanted to take into consideration some kind of size. And here you go. It suggests something, and this kind of makes sense. It says min width 1000 pixels. Now, what does it mean really? It says that whenever the size is at a minimum, the minimum of the size, not that the size is less than, it's the minimum of it is 1000 pixels. The things that I type in here is going to be true. I rarely paste things like that. I'm using these values because they're more common. I never use like 1000 pixels or something like that, because screens and sizes and things are usually based on this very, very basic notion of working with 16 plus 16 is 32, is 64, is 128, is 256, is 512, is 1024. You see? Yeah, and there you go. And it says these are like common things you see in screen resolutions and stuff like that. And there's a reason for that. It's historical. It's not very important that I bring it up right now, but that's also why I put this min value of 1024 pixels. We have min width up there. So it says from the size 1024 pixels and up, the things I type in here will be true. Let's see if that's true. Take this, and I paste it, and I save. Okay, you can see right now it's larger than 1000 pixels. I can tell you it is. But if you see there? Can you see? It actually shifts around. When I go below 1024 pixel in width of this browser screen window, it goes back to these values, because this is no longer true. So nothing that is written inside of here will be counted upon, or will be even seen by the browser. So that's how media query works, and you can imagine that this is going to be very, very cool, because you could also change design based on it. You can change layout based on it. You can change any property you want based on the screen width. This is a short example, of course, so I implore you to, after you've seen the lesson as well, start to practice around with using media queries, because it's really going to help you working with responsive design. It's at the very core of responsive web design. So let's see, we have these two. I could have said we're going to see a different version to this because we're working with something called range syntax today. So instead of using min, width, and all of that, oh, sorry, I accidentally hit caps there. Width, we actually do this. So this is basically saying when width is larger than or equal to 1024 pixels. When this thing is larger than, you can see that it's larger than. It's a condition because, and you can see there's the larger than sign is to the left, so you can see that it's pointed that way. It's larger than or equal to. Means it's going to take not just larger than. If I did this, it's going to go for 1025 and up, but this is going from 1024 and up. This is going to be true. So nothing's going to change. It's still going to work the very same way. It's just another syntax, but you need to know that these things will be seen out there. And this is starting to become more common to do it like this instead of typing min width. It makes it easier to type anyway. So that's a good start. I think the next thing would be to step into container. Grid container is a whole other beast. Because when you're talking about media queries, you often think about media queries as something that really it depends on the browser window size. But in many ways, that is not what we really want. We want our design to look good. That is the purpose. It should look good on the device. So kudos to those who came up with the idea of media screens, and it's probably going to be useful for a long time ahead. But there's a better idea. It is to think about, well, the structure you show, if it's a nav, if it's a card, if it's a formula form, whatever structure you use, it is not the size of the screen that decides on how many rows or columns can exist inside of that form. Not directly. It is the size of the form itself. So the form itself, say it takes up half of the screen width. Now, it's going to take up a lot less than a form that takes up 100% of the screen width, right? So with that said, there's going to be less room with the one who takes up half of the screen width. So what we really should have looked up and make a query about and ask condition about is how much space the form takes up. So each input and each thing inside the form can take its proper space, depending on how large the form is, not how large the screen is. That is the container query. That is the very purpose of the container query. We can use it in other creative ways, but that is the core purpose of it. To make a container query, really we could do it different ways, but if you only have one container query, it's going to, we only really need to specify a type like this. But I don't think that we should. Container type is going to tell us you should just keep with inline size. There are reasons for almost always to keep inline size there. There are different values there as well, but I'll keep it simple. This is the one you'll need to use. Container type right now is going to say that CSS grid, this one up here, is the container. Okay, it's the one which size these are dependent on. Instead of looking at the whole screen, it's going to look at this one. How large is this one? And then it's going to make changes to the queries depending on this grid's size. That is very important. The difference there is extremely important. So say that you have many containers, then you need a container name. And it's even it's good practice because, I mean, who knows that you always have one container in something? It's really almost naive to say that, oh, I don't need a container name and never use it, two containers. I mean, it's better off if you just take the habit of naming every container that you create, so you can actually, you don't have to do it in hindsight, So let's say we call this grid container. Cool. And these names has to be unique as well. Now we have a CSS grid, and we know that we need to have some child inside of this that is dependent on its parent container size, its size. So how are we going to do this? We could try to recall that we have syntax that we can recognize here. We could go with @ symbol, and we go to container. And yeah, you see, it's just some kind of structure there. I'm not going to keep those values, I think. Well, in fact, I might keep those values. I think these are kind of good. It's a good idea that we actually look at the same size so you can see the difference. Yep, I love that. Now what we're going to do now is just going to take, we'll take this code again this time. This time we will remove the color, so it's not going to look at the color at all. And then we shift these around. I'll tell this one to be up here and this code to be down here, having copied so they're shift places. Now I save, and what's important now to see is that we still have this shift of color where you see the col3, it's there. It's there now as well, but it's still col3, but it has changed color. What I'm trying to do down here is that you're asking the question, whenever this thing, not the screen, but this thing that the whole border is around here, whenever this thing is larger than 1024 pixels in width, I want col3 to jump over here and col8 to jump over there. Now they're not going to take all of that many columns, but you can see it's going to happen. I know it. There you go. You see? Now it says this is 1024 pixels, and they shift place like this. That is cool, right? So now it doesn't look on the screen width. It looks at the width of the container, whichever container you told it to look at. Okay. So there's that. Now nesting is done differently, and to some degree you have to like make up your own path here to how to work with nesting. But if I'm taking this one and I use it, I can go ahead and apply it to. Sorry. I'm going to apply it to something in here. There you go. This is the whole code. Take this one. I go in here instead. Now I can remove this because it's already set up here. It looks at 5 and it's going to keep this. And now we can do the same thing for, I believe this is going to work as well for this one. I'm going to take this, I'm going to remove that, because the only thing we really need is the media query. And I save. And I think that we'll still see the shift of colors there. Yep, we do. So you can see we can also nest the media query inside of this one, so we don't have to retype the selector. Now, do we want to do that? It depends on how I work with media queries. We can also, sometimes some people don't nest this, they use media queries in the separate content, but I don't like that. I think starting to think nesting and reusing is a good practice, because it's going to be more and more of the future. So please experiment around with this a bit. And to some degree, I think that I need to tell you right now, when you're working with a layout assignment, you might get some kind of syntax errors showing up depending on these things. When you're like nesting things, you might get, when you check whether you've broken any rules, you've done something wrong. And if that happens, and you think that you haven't done anything wrong, what you could do is that you could easily just take reverse this process. Sorry, I'm going to do that. Put him over here, and then do everything like it's not nested at all. Just test it if that works. I'm going to accept either or in the layout assignment. I think that is going to be my position. I'm quite sure. I am sure of it. So if that happens, and you've done it that way, perfect. Doesn't really matter. What's important is that you do not select anything that is not part of, for example, CSS Grid area. Or when you work with CSS Grid area, you want to select only CSS Grid area things, of course, and not some Flexbox thing or CSS Grid thing, and stuff like that. So if you look at the layout assignment, you'll make sense of what I'm just said. Thank you very, very, very much. I think that we have a clear example of how media queries and grid containers work now. The way, the versions, and how you could work with this in different ways. I mean, this is going to be something that you have to practice your own. But there's so many ways, so the sky is limit. But it's really, really the core of responsive web design. Thank you very much. I'll see you in the next movie. We will talk about CSS functions and custom properties.